Hello and welcome to Stories That Shape Us. My name is Joanna Daniel. Thank you for joining me in this new season or series of Stories That Shape Us. This series is the rejection series, and today I'm talking about rejection. What does rejection feel like? What does rejection feel like? And when I say what does rejection feel like, I'm mostly thinking about what's happening in your body when you experience rejection, because sometimes we are more focusing on our minds, we're focused on what we're thinking, our thoughts, and we're not thinking about what it feels like. And there's something that's going on in our bodies as well. And so I want to spend this time just talking through some of the things that is happening in your body when rejection happens, and some of the things that you can do to feel better, because it's really okay for us to acknowledge rejection, acknowledge that it's happening, acknowledging how it feels, because that's the path to work our way through it. So, what I'd like you to figure out is what's happening in your body, or just to not necessarily figure out, but to get in touch with, because it's happening and we want to get in touch with it. We want to connect with what's happening. So, where in your body do you feel it? So, when you experience rejection, whatever kind it is, where in your body do you feel it? Is it in your shoulders? Does it feel heavy? Sometimes rejection can feel heavy, like a weight on our shoulders, and it can feel like you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders, and or you're carrying something that's really not manageable. You can't manage, and it's just sitting there, and that can cause several things to happen. Sometimes it can cause back pain. Sometimes it can cause headache. Sometimes pain in our shoulders. It can cause different things, or pain in the back of your neck. It can manifest itself in different way. That weight in your on your shoulders, that rejection can feel like. Sometimes rejection might feel sticky or sickly. It's a discomfort that you're feeling, that you're experiencing in your stomach, in your tummy area, or it can be a tight feeling in your chest. So notice those things that I use to describe it. It can feel heavy, it can feel sticky or sickly, it can feel tight, right? And those are just some ways to describe what rejection might feel like. For you, it might feel something different. It might feel different for you. It might feel empty, like there's a void, because and sometimes the way we feel is sometimes connected to our automatic response. If it feels like a void, you might use your shutdown, your withdrawal response to deal with things that are triggering for you. And that's why it might feel like a void. It might feel like nothing. It's airy, but it's not a comfortable nothing. It's an uncomfortable nothing. And so just really connect with, sometimes rejection might feel like a storm or something brewing, because it might put you in your fight place, where you feel in anger might be bubbling up. So it might feel like something. Sometimes it might feel like all your bones are hurting because you're holding something in. You're holding something in. Might be shame or frustration, or um not feeling like not having a sense of belonging or acceptance. And so that might make you hold things in, and all your bones might hurt. It's really important to know what's going on when you experience rejection, because we do all the time. We experience rejection every day. Well, maybe not every day, but we experience rejection, and we want to know what's happening. We want to know what's happening because sometimes something might be going on that might tell us that we're rejected, but we're not. And we will experience those feelings anyway, the weight, the sickly feeling, the tightness in our chest, the storm that's brewing in our bodies, and the locked muscles. We might be experiencing those. We might feel it because we're telling ourselves that this is rejection, because what's happening feel like rejection. But and what we want to know is, what do you automatically do when you feel rejected? Do you withdraw? Do you become angry? Do you push back? Do you become hot? What happens? What do you do? Because sometimes, because something might feel like rejection, you might go in your automatic response because you've not learned how to really be with those feelings and to work your way through them, to breathe, to talk yourself down, to reframe, and to ask questions, because it's not comfortable to do those things. So when we feel it and we act out of the feelings, then sometimes conflict arises out of that, because that wasn't what was going on. And because we feel something that automatic response happened, and we may cause damage in relationships that didn't need to. But sometimes it is true. And so if you are able to check in with yourself, what am I feeling? Because those feelings are for us to deal with. They're not anybody else's responsibility. Now, the other people might reject us, but the feelings are ours to work through. So you might check in with yourself and go, right, there is that familiar feeling in my chest, it's tight, or the weight on my shoulders. Oh, I can feel that sickly feeling in my stomach. They've just done this thing. I'm right here and they're planning the party and nobody invited me. That feels like rejection. Or something is going on at work, you get passed over for promotion, or the in case of the mother wound, when you're in a family where there's toxicity and you're rejected again, or you're sidelined, or you're talked about, or whatever the things are that makes you feel rejected, it's important to know what it feels like, so then you know what to do. Because when you feel it, you can leave the situation, you can breathe, you can go for a walk, you can ask some questions, you can reflect what is going on for you. There are a number of things that are available to you that perhaps when you were a child wouldn't have been available to you. So you can take control of you, so that you're not going into your automatic response of shutdown or anger, and is again building up a pattern of how people see you. Not that we're focusing on that, but because we want to be consistent in our maturity and how the kind of character that we exhibit, then it's important. So also, what do you think about how you feel is important? What you think about how you feel is important. What do you tell yourself based on how you feel? Because sometimes our feelings are not wrong. We feel the sickly feeling, we feel the weight on our shoulders, but what it tells us might be wrong, right? So you might be in a situation and there's things happening around you and you read it to be rejection because it feels like it. You feel the familiar weight on your shoulders. This conversation is happening, and for you, it feels like rejection. And you will have a pathway, a habitual way of thinking about that. You will think certain things about yourself, and you'll think things about the people that are rejecting you. But let's talk about you. What do you think about yourself when you feel rejected? Oftentimes, some of the things that people will think is, I am not worth it. I'm not valuable. Nobody loves me. I'm not lovable. I don't belong. I'm not accepted. And those are the things you might tell yourself when you feel rejected. But remember that the feeling, you can feel the weight on your shoulders because it's there, but what you tell yourself about that might not be true. Because because the triggers happen doesn't mean what's happening is really true. So that it's a perceived threat sometimes, right? But because we have this habitual way of doing it, that's what our nervous system does. So it's really important to examine your thoughts. Am I unlovable? Don't I belong where? Because this group may not have me, or because I experienced rejection growing up, or because I'm used to rejection because it happens in these places, doesn't mean it's happening right now. So that's some ways of breathing, of shifting your position, of talking to yourself and telling yourself what's true, so that feelings doesn't dictate to you how you act. Because sometimes if we feel rejected, we feel the weight on our shoulders, we tell ourselves that we're unlovable. That comes with a lot of shame and a lot of the lack of acceptance, because we crave belonging, because we're created to connect. And so that might influence anger, and you act out of your anger. So you're known as an angry person, but you're not. It's because you are using that as a means to cover sadness or fear. But what if it is that you are rejected and you feel the familiar weight? The mind narrates it and tell you what it is, and you go, I am sad. I feel sad that I'm rejected. And what if you minister to that sadness? What are the things that you need when you're sad? What are the things that you can do for yourself to comfort yourself in times when you're sad? So that helps take care of that wound, and it doesn't project it as anger or anything else. Also, sometimes history informs how we feel, how we view rejection. Because we were rejected as a child, or because we experienced abandonment, we have a particular story that we tell ourselves. You might have a particular story that you tell yourself. And when that familiar weight comes on your shoulder, the tightness in your chest, or the sickly feeling, that story will come up automatically. And so part of your healing is to challenge the story. Write the story out whenever that happens again. Read it over on your own and look for the negative messages in that story. Look for the places where you were doing mind reading. Look for the place where you did emotional reasoning. They were talking and whispering, therefore. Look for those places and try to fix those places. So if you see where you were mind reading, because we can't and we don't know what people are thinking, it's what we're thinking. So that's what needs to be fixed. So some of the times fixing the story means getting rid of the negative messages, the distortions that are in the story, so that you can be free. So the next time you feel a stirring that tells you that you're rejected, you can tell yourself the right story. Maybe that's not the right place for me to be. Because I'm not invited doesn't mean I don't belong. Because I'm not invited doesn't mean that I'm not accepted. Maybe you have an emotional need for acceptance, which is fine, but these people might not be able to meet that need. That doesn't make them bad people. It just means that they're not your people. They can't meet your needs. And so those are some really important truths to tell yourself as you're managing rejection, as you're being comfortable with what it feels like in your body, where you understand what your mind is narrating, and that you can fix the story and find the negative messages in the story so that you can free yourself. Thank you for joining me in this episode of Stories That Shape Us. I hope you'll join me on the next story.